As a database developer from time to time, you're going to be called on to do some development on a database that you've never seen before or one that you've only heard about and you actually didn't have your hands on when the database was created. What I want to show you here is I'm going to click on Start and open the SQL Server Management Studio and show you how you can create a database diagram. Now it's not really a best kept secret, but a lot of people just don't think about using this tool. I'll just connect with Windows Authentication there. And there is a tool built into the Management Studio that will allow us to see a diagram of our database. Now this is huge because I can see the relationships between the tables, I can see the columns in the tables and so forth. And that will really help you get your head around the database and around the various pieces and parts and how they relate to each other. So what I need to do here is, you'll notice that I have the AdventureWorks LT 2008 database and the PUBS database. Now we grabbed these, and again the PUBS database and the AdventureWorks install executable are in the working files folder for you. And so you've already gone through the steps earlier in the course. We went through the steps about installing these sample databases, how to go about it, so make sure you've done that. But what I want to show you here is, notice on database diagrams, I'm going to show you an error that you may get when you attach a database to SQL Server. When I click on this and try to expand it, it's going to throw up an error and it's going to say, hey, wait a minute, dude. And notice what it's saying. The diagram support objects cannot be installed because the database does not have a valid owner. And so we're first going to have to go to the Files page of the database properties and set the database owner for those files to a valid login. So I'll just say OK to that, right-click on PUBS and go to Properties. And then you'll notice here that if we go to Files, notice up here there is no owner set for this database. And so what I'll have to do is go out here and browse, and I'm just going to make it the administrator. And then I will just say OK. Then I can now come back and say right-click and New Database Diagram. And then it says, I don't have one or more of the support objects required. You will usually always get this the first time you run it. And I'll say yes, just install them, and it'll take just a second for this to install and run. Now notice, I can now add the tables that I want. I will add the authors table, and you see it back there. And actually, I will just hold down the Shift key, highlight every one, and then click Add. And notice what it's doing in the background there. It is going to load these tables up, and depending on humidity and speed of your processor and what else is going on with your machine, this will take a few seconds up to a couple of minutes. And notice, there we go. We can now close this, and I'm going to make this other stuff move out of the way. Then I'm going to set this to fit. Notice there is a picture of our database in diagram format. I can print this, I can do all sorts of things. Notice I'm going to come out here and zoom this to 100%, and you will notice that I can scroll around and see this is the titles table. Notice it is attached to the title author table. There's a relationship, and I can click on this and get some information. Notice I can see that there is a relationship there, and there's some other things that I can do. You'll notice that as I highlight these, nothing seems to be happening. However, if I look at my properties, I highlighted this relationship, and I go up here to Properties and look at Tables and Columns, and it tells me that my primary table is Titles, and the key that I'm using is Title ID. And if I make this a little wider and spread this, you can see it. And the foreign table is title author, and the key column is Title ID. So if I look, sure enough, there's Title Author and it's Title ID. So I'm joining it between this column and this column. Now notice it will allow me to make changes here just by double clicking. I can right click on any table, and I can go to Table View, and I can see just the column names, or I can see Standard, which will show me the data types. Notice the little check boxes, whether it allows nulls, or I can come out here and go to Table View and modify that and put all kinds of things. Notice Global Unique Identifier, whether it's an identity seed, does it allow default values? So I can add all of those. Now, something else that has to happen here, I'll take this back to column names. If I want to set all of these at once or multiples, I can just click and drag across them and highlight them, and then right click, and I can change the standard on all of those. Then I can just click one and drag it and relocate it. There's a lot of things that you can glean about your database this can really help you in development and writing queries and updates and so forth, because you can see right into your tables. You can see how they relate. If I had better resolution on my monitor, I would leave this out. And notice, just by clicking on a relationship, I can go out there and look and see the relationship between those tables. And there's some other things that I can see and set here as well. So that's the database diagram functionality in the Management Studio. This is something you need to use, and I would always start with any kind of database development and so forth with using this tool to see what's out there already.